Sorry, I keep getting I've had such a bad week with that. And then again, if it feels okay, we can also slightly just kind of tilt over a little bit towards the right side. So we stretch more through that left side. And then again, we can come back to center. We can release the arms. We can give those arms a bit of a shrug, a bit of a shake out. And then again, we can go onto the opposite side. Keep forgetting to press record. Forgot to record Tuesday morning session completely. So we're going to take that right arm up behind us this time. Again, kind of reaching that right arm up. Again, we can bend the elbow, we can bring that hand somewhere between the shoulder blades. I always find my right side is a lot tighter. I have to kind of help it kind of inch a little bit more up my back. Again, we can squeeze that shoulder blade onto the back. And then again, we can just gently here drop our kind of left ear towards the left shoulder. If we want to, if that feels okay, to stretch out that right, kind of top of the right shoulder, the right side of the neck. And then again, we can come back to center, and we can release. And then again, we can stretch that right arm up in front. We can bring that right arm up, we can drop it in between the shoulder blades. Then coming in from the top, you can bring your left hand over, holding onto your elbow, inching that hand a little bit more down through the back. Again, trying to tuck the ribs in a little bit here, relaxing the lower back. And then again, we can stay here in this position, or again, we can just slightly tilt over towards that left side. So again, we stretch through the right. And then again, we can come back to center. And we give those arms a bit of a shake out. And if you're watching this in the recording after the class, you will need to do your left arm and take your left arm up behind you and hold there for a couple of breaths, do a little neck stretch, and then relax. So now we are going to come over onto our fronts. So again, if you want to add a little bit of shoulder stretch here, you can work with a block. So again, if you have a block, you don't have to, you can just have the arms stretched out in front. If you want to add that little shoulder stretching, you can again stretch your arms out in front. You can kind of have your hands resting kind of off the edge of the block, and again bring your forehead onto the floor so your head is slightly lower than the shoulders, which again will just slightly intensify that stretch. And then again, we take it a little bit into that side stretch here in child. So again, we can walk our hands over towards one side. And then again, we can come back to center. We can go over towards that opposite side. And then again, we can come back to center. And then again, we can just step that block out to the side, and we can just slowly here come on onto all fours. So we're just going to work it first into that little threading the needle, which again is that really good side stretch, also very good shoulder and kind of side muscle stretch, and kind of target different areas with it. So again, if we just come into that flat back position, and then we're just going to bring our right arm up, stretch the right arm up towards the ceiling. We thread that right arm through underneath that left arm, and we kind of drop our kind of right ear and right shoulder towards the floor. And again, if it doesn't quite come onto the floor, you can place it on a block or a cushion if that feels better. And again, we can stay here on our knees. If we want to, we can also stretch our left leg a little bit out to the side. So as we do that, we kind of press those left toes into the floor, and it just shifts our weight a little bit more over. If that makes us feel out of balance, keeping both knees on the floor. And then we can also take it a little bit into the other arm and the side body here. So if we just kind of start to bring our, or walk our left hand up towards the top edge of the mat. And then maybe just kind of walking it a little bit over towards our left ear. So we start to get that side stretch through the left ribs, kind of the left arm. And then we can bring left hand back in. We can bring that left knee back in. We can slowly come back up here onto all fours. And then again, we can come onto that opposite side. So again, we take that left arm up this time as we inhale. Exhale, thread that left arm through, dropping that kind of the outside of the left shoulder, the left ear here onto the floor. Or again, bringing it onto a block if it doesn't quite comfortably come onto the floor. Or if it just feels better, if it's a lot of kind of tension, very tense in the neck, it might just feel better to support the head. And then again, we can leave those knees stacked. We can bring our right leg out to the side, so we kind of press into the toes. So that kind of shifts our weight a little bit more over. If it makes us feel that a little bit out of balance, just having both knees on the floor. We can also take that right arm out towards the top of the mat, walk it a little bit over towards that right ear. And then again, we can bring right hand back in, right knee back in, and we can come back up onto all fours. So now we're going to work a little bit into our cat-cow spine rolls, as always, as in every single class I do, I think. So again, we just start with that flat back position. We again inhale, tucking the toes under, dropping the belly down, rolling the shoulders back, lifting up through the head. We can exhale, tuck toes under, tuck tailbone down, suck up through the belly, drop the head. Again, a couple more rounds, working that kind of slinky spine with the breath. Try and bring as much movement and as awareness as we can to the whole of the back. And then again, when we've done 3 rounds here, we can start to take it a little bit into the legs. So again, we can start to take that left leg up as we lift up through the head, inhaling. Exhaling, we curl in, nose to knee to nose. Inhaling, we can come up, we can bend the knee, take it into that little quad stretch. Exhale, we can curl in. And again, one more round. Inhale, lifting, and exhale, curling. And then the next time we come up, we're going to lift that left leg up. This time again, we're going to stack our left hip on top of our right, dropping that left foot over towards the right side. And again, we can also take our gaze over our right shoulder and try and look down towards those toes. You might not see them, but they are there somewhere. And then again, we can slowly bring that left knee back in. We can again take that right leg up as we inhale, exhale, curling in. And again, a couple more rounds, this time taking into that little quad stretch. Exhale, curling in. And again, one more round. And again, when we've done 3 rounds, we can bring that right leg back up. We can stack our right hip on top of our left. Drop that foot over towards the opposite side. Take the gaze over the left shoulder. And then again, we can come back down onto all fours. So the next couple of ones, we're going to work into the cow head pose legs. So we've kind of done the arms. Now we're going to work a little bit into the legs. And again, this one you can come back into quite a strong hip stretch and glute stretch. You don't have to, you can play around with the movement. So I will quickly kind of demonstrate. So what we're going to do here is we're going to thread our left leg in front of our right. We're going to get our kind of left foot, we swing it over towards the right side of the mat. And then we get our kind of right leg and we swing that over towards the left side of the mat. So feet are towards the opposite side of the mat. And we slightly adjust our hands. So our hands are kind of between the knees. So the knees are in the midline of the body here. And then we're going to just kind of go forwards and back a little. So again, and then what I'm going to let you choose to do is either come forwards and back, or for some of you, if it feels okay, you can also do it on a block. You can actually come back into that cow head legs pose, which is a pretty intense stretch. So you don't have to come back to this one. So again, if you're not quite there, we thread that left leg in front. We flick the left foot over towards the right side. Flip right leg over towards the left. And then again, we can just slowly start to kind of shift weight forwards and back a little. So we just take it as far back as feels comfortable for our knees and our glutes. And then again, it might just stay here. It might feel good to just stay here and move. Some of you, it might feel even okay to just come back, drop that bum towards the floor. Again, you might not even bring it onto the block or onto the floor. You might just kind of push back a little bit further. Or again, you might even kind of slightly lift up so you're sitting on the block. I find it more comfortable on a block. I find it particularly strong pose. You can do it where your kind of bum's on the floor, your legs are out to the side, but I find that very intense for my hips. So I like to kind of just come back to perch on the block. And again, go gently with this one because it is a very strong stretch. Just coming back to whatever point feels comfortable here. And then again, we can slowly come back forwards. We can bring that left leg back out. And then again, we can swap sides. So this time we slide our right leg in front of the left. So we're kind of crossing the legs, crossing the thighs. We swing our kind of right foot over towards the left side. We swing our left leg over towards the right. So again, legs across. We again might just adjust the hands a little bit so our knees are more in that midline of the body. And then again, we can just shift our weight a little bit forwards and back. And again, just whatever feels good. Just come into whatever point feels okay here. And then again, we can slowly, if it feels okay, come back a little bit further. Maybe just hang out there, the bum a little lifted. Or again, we can come all the way back, maybe with the block, perch on the block a little bit. And as you're all in very darkly lit rooms, I can't really see many of you very well, so I'm kind of trusting you're okay there. So. And then again, we can slowly come back. And we can just swing that leg back free. And then we're just going to come back into any little child pose here, just for a couple of moments, just to relax the wrists and the legs and the hips. And again, we can just take a couple of breaths here. So again, we can have arms stretched out, we can have hands down by the feet, we can have forehead resting on a couple of fists, resting on the block. And then again, we can just stretch those arms out. We can slowly come back up onto all fours. So the next couple of ones we're going to do here, we're going to work into those kind of child up dog stretches. They kind of follow on from that cat-cow. So again, this is where we step our hands a little bit further forward. So they're not quite stacked underneath the shoulders now, a little bit further forward. We inhale. And then we exhale, pull back towards that little child stretch. And then again, we can inhale, coming back to that flat back position. And as we exhale, we kind of drop the pelvis down, rolling up through the chest, lift up through the head as we come into that little up dog. And then again, a couple more rounds. Again, we slowly slide back towards that little child stretch or hair stretch. Keep the head lifted. Coming into our little upward facing dog. And then again, just one more round. And then the next time we come into that little upward facing dog, if it feels okay there to hang out for a couple of breaths, we can. We can again take it into that little side stretch. So again, we can just take our gaze over our right shoulder. That stretches through that left shoulder a little bit, or the left side a little bit more. We can inhale, come in center, exhale, taking the gaze over the left, stretching through the right a little bit more. And then we're just going to slowly lower down here and just come on to our fronts. And again, we're just going to give those legs a little bit of a wiggle here, or that bum a little bit of a wiggle, so we just stretch out that lower back level. So now we're going to come into that kind of little hip and shoulder openers here. So to begin with, we're going to come into that little half frog pose. So we're just going to kind of shift our way over towards the right side of the mat. And again, we're just going to bring our left leg out. So our left knee might be in line with our left hip. So we've kind of got that frog leg. And again, we can just stay here on the elbows. You can go forehead onto the floor. You can support the head on the block, whatever feels good. Or again, it might feel okay to even kind of stretch that kind of left leg out to the side. So the kind of the foot is more in line with the hip. Whichever feels good for your hips. So whether you're in that half frog pose, that half frog leg. So again, kind of knee in line with hip, and then kind of knee also in line with your ankle. Or again, we can have that leg stretched out. And again, we're just going to spend a little bit of time here. We're going to soften into it for a few breaths. I love this stretch. And then again, we can just bring that left leg back in. We can come back onto our fronts. We can have that little wiggle of the bum. And then again, I just swing around for this one. We have to swap sides. Again, we can wiggle over towards that left side of the mat. We can bring that right leg out now so it's in line with the hip. We can have that knee bent, that frog legs there. Or again, we can stretch that right leg out to the side if that feels better. So again, either knee bend or leg straight. And again, we can just stay up on the elbows. We can drop the side of the head onto the floor. We can just relax here for a few breaths. And then again, we can slowly bring that leg back in. We can again take a moment here, have that little wiggle out of the bum. And then the next little one now is just taking it into that shoulder. So again, this might be where you want to use your block as well, just to support your head. So again, my favourite, Dave's dead arm pose, as it's now been christened. So again, this is that one where we take our left arm out to the side. This is quite a strong shoulder opener, so just go gently with it. And we just bring our right hand roughly underneath the front of the right shoulder. And then we kind of roll over towards that left side. So we're kind of trapping that left arm underneath us. And this might be where you want to bring a block under your head or a cushion under your head here. And then we're just going to kind of shift a little bit here. So again, really depending on how the position of the legs is, depends on how the stretch feels. So if it's feeling particularly tight in the front of that left shoulder, having those knees bent, weight shifting forwards a little bit more. If it feels okay to have the legs stretched out, that will shift your weight back a little bit further, deepening the stretch. Or again, if you get your back leg, drop your top leg back. That will shift your weight even further over. So again, slightly intensifying that stretch through the front of the shoulder. So again, whichever variation feels good, knees bent, weight shifting forwards a little bit, legs straight, or again, top leg drop back a little bit. And we just relax here, because again, it is a pretty intense shoulder stretch. And then again, we can just straighten that leg. If you have the leg drop back, we can roll back over towards the front, onto the front of the body. We can now take that right arm out to shoulder level. We can have left hand underneath the left shoulder. We slightly roll over towards that right side. So again, we're trapping the arm underneath. We can rest our head on a block or just on the floor here. These ones I have to adjust so much that I can see you all. To demonstrate and then to be able to see you all. And again, we can just roll over on to that side. We can again bend the knees a little bit, shift the weight forwards, straighten the legs, or again drop your top leg back. So again, whichever one you prefer. And then again, we can just slowly come back onto our fronts. We can again just take a couple of moments here, give that lower back a little bit of a wiggle. And then again, we're just going to bring hands underneath the shoulders, gently lift up, bringing those knees a little bit wider out to the side. Again, shifting back to that little wide-legged stretch. Either bringing the forehead onto a couple of fists, forehead onto the floor, whatever feels good here. And then again, we're just going to stretch those arms out. Slowly come up here onto all fours. So now we're going to come up and do a couple of kind of standing poses. So again, we're just going to bring our hands underneath the shoulders. Again, get ready to come into our little downward facing dog. So again, just pressing into the hands up between the shoulder blades, tucking the toes under, shifting the bum towards the heels, taking that tailbone up towards the ceiling. Coming into our little downward facing dog here, so we just stretch those legs out for a couple of breaths. And then again, we can just slowly walk those hands in. We can come into our little forward flop or forward fold here. We take that couple of moments just to ragdoll. And then again, we can roll up, vertebrae by vertebrae. And coming up into standing. So we're just going to do like a couple of kind of sequences, just flowing a little bit. Again, not particularly strenuous. Again, just working through the side of the body here. So we're going to do that one. So we're going to come towards the front of the mat. So I'll just do it this way to demonstrate. So if we just come towards the front of the mat, and we're just going to cross our right foot in front of our left. So again, we just find that balance here, a little bit of a balance. So again, we're going to do that little bit of an IT band stretch here in the legs. So we're going to inhale, bringing those arms up. We're going to grab hold of our left wrist with our right hand. And then we're going to exhale, bring those arms over towards the right side. So we stretch through the left side and through that back left leg. And then again, we can inhale, coming back to center. We can clasp the hands together here. We can exhale, folding forwards. So again, we might just drop those hands down onto the floor. We might bring them onto a block if that feels better. We might just ragdoll here if that just feels okay. And then we're going to step back in a moment. So we're just going to cup our fingertips onto the floor. We're going to shift the weight towards that right foot. And we just lift that back leg, that left leg up. And we step that back leg as far back as we can. And then we just start to bend that front knee. And then we just come into a little runner's lunge here as we drop our back, left knee and left foot onto the floor. So again, I wasn't going to do it, but I tend to do it every week. We'll do that little bit of psoas stretch here. So again, if we just kind of squeeze our belly towards the front thigh, allowing the pelvis to sink down a little bit, so we get that little bit of quad and psoas stretch here in that left side. Again, we might get that little bit of compression where our kind of hip, our belly kind of meets our hip bone on the front leg, or our front hip bone hits our front leg. And again, we can take a couple of breaths here. And then we're going to play around again a little bit with these stretches. So again, just coming to whatever feels comfortable here. So you might keep your hands fixed and just shift your weight forwards and back, keeping that right foot pressed into the floor to begin with. You might kind of walk your hands back a little bit as you stretch back and then go forwards. You might just come back to that point where you get a really good stretch and just kind of hang out there for a couple of breaths, just softening into it. So again, just whatever feels good here for your legs, just to stretch out the hamstrings, the calves a little. And then again, we can start to take it a little bit more into a calf stretch. So we start to come up onto our heel on that front leg, tucking the toes up towards us. And then again, we can shift forwards and back, or we can just come back and hang out there. And again, I think as I've said before with these stretches, what I personally like to do, and again, you don't have to do this, but if you quite like quad stretches as well, you can tuck your toes under on your back leg. Go all the way back, so maybe your bum hits your back heel. So you get a little bit more of a kind of hamstring stretch on the front leg, and a little bit of quad stretch on the back leg. And then again, what I like to do is come forwards, untuck my toes, and then go all the way back and just kind of drop my bum onto my heel. So again, all variations of the same poses, so whichever you prefer to do. And then again, once we've had a little play around here, we can slowly shift back forwards. Now we're going to take it into that little IT band stretch. So we're going to come up onto our fingertips and we're going to get our front foot, that right foot, and we're going to walk it over towards our left hand. And then we just slightly turn onto kind of the outside edge of that left foot. So the sole of the foot is facing towards that left hand. And again, you might have your knee quite bent here. You might feel quite a good IT band stretching here. Sometimes pulling back a little bit with the bum can intensify that stretch. I find it intensifies it a lot. Or again, for some people who've got very kind of long IT bands, you can even kind of walk your leg on your hands, which is just a little bit too intense for me. So that roughly there is good for me. Oh, it's such a good stretch. And then again, we can slowly shift forwards. We can walk that right foot back. So again, that right heel is roughly underneath our right knee. We're going to do a little step back in a moment. So again, we can tuck the toes under on the back leg, lift up through the back leg as we press through the back heel. Inhale. We can exhale, step that right foot back. We can shift into a plank. So again, we shift the weight of the shoulders over the hands. But then from there, we can drop knees onto the floor. We can come back towards child pose. Or again, if you prefer, you can bend your elbows, lowering down into that half chaturanga. Exhale, pushing up towards that little upward facing dog. And then going back to that little child stretch. And then again, we can slowly slide those hands in underneath the shoulders. We tuck toes under, we take that tailbone back up towards ceiling, we come into our little downward facing dog. And then again, we can walk hands to feet, feet to hands. You can step through, jump through, float through, however feels good to come into your little forward flop or forward fold. And then again, we can roll up, hinge up, take those arms wide out to the side, lift up, and come back into Tadasana. And then again, doing all that on the opposite side, so again, coming to the front of the mat. This time taking the left leg in front of the right. And getting grounded here into the feet. And then again, inhale, bringing those arms up. grabbing hold of that right wrist with the left hand this time. Exhaling, bringing those arms over towards that left side. So we're going to be stretched through that right side. And then again, we can inhale, coming back to center. We can clasp the hands, we can exhale, folding forwards. We can drop those hands down onto the floor. We can come into our little forward flop, forward fold. We can come onto a block if that feels better. Support ourselves there. And then again, just cupping those fingertips in line with the toes, shifting the weight towards that left foot. This time we can step that right foot back. We can slowly start to bring that back right knee onto the floor. We again have that little runner's lunge, so where our left knee and ankle might be in line, or again you might have that front foot a little bit wiggled back, so maybe your knees and toes are more in line, which I just prefer because I like the Achilles stretch there. Again, we can allow the pelvis to sink down, so get that little bit of quad and hip flexor stretch in the back leg. And then again, we can just start to take it into those little hamstring stretches. So again, if we start to shift the weight back, keeping those front toes pressed into the floor to begin with. And again, you can shift weight forwards and back. You can keep hands fixed. You can move the hands. You can again come back to where you get a good stretch. And again, I think I've said this before, but I always kind of like to tuck my toes under on my back foot when I shift back. Again, you don't have to, but I just find I always automatically do it. Like when I go back into child, I always tuck toes under as well. And then again, you can start to kind of come up onto the heel, pulling the toes towards you. Just shift forwards and back. And then again, if you want to, you can do the variation where you tuck toes under, shift back. So it becomes a little bit, I hate the word stronger in yoga, just a little, slightly more intense hamstring strength. Again, I think my favourite saying from all the yoga teachers is Bernie Clark, who does the yin yoga. And he basically says, if you feel it, you're doing it. It doesn't matter what it looks like. It doesn't matter what it's supposed to look like in the books. If you feel it, no good. You've got the stretch. You've got the pose. And then again, the next time we come forwards, we can now take it into that little like T-band stretch. So again, if we just get that left foot, walk that left foot again a little bit more over towards that right hand. So again, we turn towards the outside of the foot. So the foot is facing the hand. We can again pull back a little bit. We might not need to. Maybe just being here is good. Sometimes pulling back a little bit with the bum and the heels. Again, sometimes even just kind of taking the foot beyond. Again, if you do have a lot of kind of issues with ankle flexion here, which again is similar to like poses like pigeon and deer pose, sometimes kind of engaging the foot, so kind of pressing through the heel a little bit, pulling the toes towards you, and then that will just kind of stop that kind of ankle kind of rolling a little bit. And a little bit too much of, you know, if you tend to kind of go over on your ankles a lot, you've got kind of a lot of kind of lax ligaments in there. And just kind of engaging your foot a little bit more. So keep your foot a little bit more rigid. And again, same in pigeon pose. And then again, we can slowly shift forwards. And then again, we can just walk that foot back between the hands. We can again plant those palms down on the floor. We can tuck toes under. We can lift up through the back leg here as we inhale. We can again exhale, stepping back into that plank pose. Again, we can drop knees, feet onto the floor here, swing back towards our child, pull back towards our child, Or again, we can bend the elbows as we inhale, exhale, pushing through towards that upward facing dog. And then again, tucking toes under and coming back to that little child stretch. And then again, we can slowly slide the hands underneath the shoulders. We can tuck toes under, we can take tailbone up towards ceiling and come into our little downward facing dog here as we stretch out. And then again, we can walk hands to feet, feet to hands. We can step through, hop through, jump through, however feels good to come into your little forward flop. And then again, we can roll up, we can hinge up, we take those arms wide out to the side and lift up. And we can come back into our little Tadasana. So the next couple of ones, we're going to work a little bit into some wide-legged poses. So we have been doing these in the yin class this week. We did wide-legged forward folds on the floor, but now we're going to work into them standing. So we're going to get our left, or actually you're at home, so it doesn't matter. So you're just going to step towards the long edge of your mat, whichever way you go. So I'm used to in class saying you all have to step the same way. So just come into whichever position you want. And again, if you want to have a block at all for support, you can bring a block in front. So again, we're just going to walk our feet so they're a little bit wider. So again, we're starting to get a little bit of stretch here through the, kind of the inner thighs. Again, not too much. We can again bring our hands onto our hips here. We can inhale. And then again, we're just going to exhale, slowly fold forward. And again, we come to that point where we start to get quite a good little hamstring stretch. And then again, we can just drop our hands down here. So again, we might bring our hands onto the floor. We might prefer to bring our hands onto a block. We might just ragdoll here for a couple of breaths. And then again, I want you just to have a little play around in this pose. So again, how does it feel to just kind of bend one leg, shift your weight over a little, moving a little bit here. And again, you can keep hands fixed. Some of you might prefer to move the upper body, so kind of walk your hands over towards one leg as you stretch through the opposite leg. But again, just have that little play around here. Because again, there's loads of different kind of ways we can stretch into the legs here. So just have a little kind of play around, try and kind of come up onto the kind of the inside edge of the foot, just whatever feels good. And then again, we can slowly come back to center when we're ready. Now we're going to play around a little bit with, I'm trying to think of which way to do it. So actually, to begin with, we'll play around a little bit here with our Scarnavelli triangles. So again, this is that one where we bring our left hand onto the floor, so it's in front of the face. And again, you can have the palm on the floor, you can have it on a block if that feels better. And again, we press down into the left hand, into the feet, we inhale, we exhale, take that right arm up towards the ceiling. We can take our gaze up to begin with. And then we just play around a little bit here with kind of where we're stretching from. So from here, we're probably kind of stretching from kind of the lower back, that lumbar spine. So now if we start to square our hips and our belly towards the floor, we're now stretching from that thoracic part, that rib cage area. And then if we turn our chest to face towards the floor, we're now just stretching up through the shoulder joint. And then we can bring right hand back in. We can swap sides, bring that right hand onto the floor. We can take that left arm up. We can take the gaze up, reach up. And then again, square the hips and the belly a little bit more towards the floor. So now we're stretching it through that rib cage area. Squaring the ribs towards the floor. So now we're just stretching up through the arm. And then again, we can slowly come back down. And then the last couple of ones here, we're just going to play around a little bit with balance. So you want to kind of have your hands comfortably on the block or on the floor. And to begin with, we're just going to shift our weight a little bit forwards and back. So we're keeping the feet flat on the floor, but we just shift weight back and a little bit forward. And then can we shift a little bit more? So we've been doing this a lot in the classes over the last few weeks, playing around with balance in the feet. So can you shift a little bit more, coming up onto your toes, and then back onto your heels. And then can you come right up onto your big toe, maybe you're going to pop up into a handstand, back onto your heels. And then again, we can slowly come back. And then the last final one here, because we're probably pretty stretched out now, can we walk our feet a little bit wider? Can we walk our hands a little bit wider so we're more like a kind of flat back position here? And then again, as we inhale and exhale, just push back as far as feels comfortable. Forwards and back a little. And then again, we can slowly come back. We can start to walk those feet in heel toe, heel toe, heel toe. We can come into our little forward flop. We can ragdoll here for a couple of moments. And then again, we can roll up or hinge up. Ooh. See how long those legs feel. Ooh, really stretched out. I'm just going to check the time. Okay. So now we're going to come back down onto the floor. We're going to finish off again with a little bit more shoulder stuff. So we're going to come down with that little kind of balance twist, little balance squat, if it feels okay. So again, we can bring our feet together. We can have feet and knees together. We can bring our hands into prayer position. And then we can slowly start to squat. And I get roughly to there, my heels start to come off the floor. But that's okay, because it just makes it a little bit more of a balance. Again, if you come part way down, you want to bring your fingers down on the floor to help you come down that last little bit. That's fine. Sometimes it can be very uncomfortable for the knees squatting, especially when you come to a certain point. And then again, if it feels okay, you can balance here for a couple of breaths. You can also chuck a little twist in here. So again, you can inhale. Exhale, twisting towards one side, so you kind of hook your elbow in front of your knee. Love this variation. And then again, we can come back, center, twist into that opposite side. And then again, we can come back to center. We can drop those hands down on the floor. We can drop the knees down. And then we can come into any little comfortable seated position to finish. So again, just however is good here to sit. So again, you can sit cross-legged, you can sit on your knees, you can sit with your legs out in front. Finish off with a little bit shoulder stretch. So again, we're just going to roll those shoulder blades back and down. We're going to do those little kind of eagle arms in a moment. So again, we're just going to bring those arms out to shoulder level. We're going to give ourselves that big hug. So we're going to take left arm over, right arm under as we catch hold of our shoulders. We're going to drop that chin in for a couple of moments, stretching out the back of the neck. And then again, we can lift the head. We can bring those arms up into eagle arms. So again, keeping the elbows crossed, maybe kind of bringing the hands together, back of the hands together, maybe just holding on to fingers, maybe bringing palms together, whatever feels good, maybe using a band, maybe just kind of sometimes resting hands on the upper arms. And then again, we can just bring those elbows in line with the shoulders, just slightly tuck those arms forwards, and then again a little bit further up. And again, we just tuck the chin in here for a little moment. So again, we just stretch through the back of the shoulders. And then again, we can just slightly tuck those arms a little bit now over towards that right side. So again, we might stretch a little bit around that left shoulder. It might change the stretch around that left shoulder. And then again, we can come back to center. And then finally, again, just whatever feels good to play around here. So again, you might just lift your arms up a little bit. You might do that little kind of cat-cow here with eagle arms, where you kind of roll in and then stretching up. Again, if you're sitting on your knees in kind of Vajrasana, one of my favorite ones to do is to kind of come down onto the floor here and then kind of hook my elbows to the outside of my right knee and stretching through my left shoulder. So again, it just slightly changes the shoulder stretch for me. So again, just whatever feels good. There's loads of variations you can do here with kind of eagle arms. It's one of those poses I definitely encourage you to play around with. And then again, we can slowly come back up. And we can release those arms. And then again, we can work onto that opposite side of the moment. So again, we can stretch those arms out. We can take our right arm over, left arm under in a moment, giving ourselves that big hug, dropping the chin down, holding onto the shoulders, maybe even wrapping your fingertips around the edges of the shoulders, of shoulder blades. And then again, we can lift the head. We can come into that eagle arms, so again, back of the hands, palm of the hands, maybe using a band, bringing the elbows up in line with the shoulders, tugging the arms forwards a little bit further up, tucking the chin in. And then again, how does it feel? Just kind of tug those arms a little bit more over towards that left side, stretch a little bit more through that right shoulder blade. And then again back to center. And again, you can just play around here. You can lift and lower. You can just lift and hang out there if you prefer. Or again, you can just lower and kind of either bring your forearms onto the floor or maybe hook your kind of elbows towards the outside of your left knee. So again, whatever feels good here, just to play around a little bit in this stretch. And then again, we can slowly come back up to center. We can release those arms. Oh, give those arms a bit of a shrug, a bit of a shake out. Oh. And then the last couple we're going to do up the floor. So we're going to do the eagle legs. It's quite funny, we've done the cowhead arms, cowhead legs. We've done the eagle arms, now we're going to do the eagle legs. We just haven't done the full poses. So we're going to slowly spin over on to our backs now. And again, we're just going to Take a couple of moments here. So again, you might just want to hug your knees in, rock out that lower back for a couple of moments. And then we're just going to drop our feet down here onto the floor. So we're just going to come into that little kind of eagle legs twist. So again, so it's two different variations. We're going to play around with them both here. So we're going to bring our left leg and kind of wrap it over our right. So left thigh wrapped over right. We can leave our left foot resting against the right lower leg, or again, you can kind of hook it around the back of the calf if that feels good. But again, remember that kind of ankle flexion. If it feels really uncomfortable, kind of flexion, extension in that ankle. And then again, we can just bring our arms out to shoulder level. We can inhale. We can exhale, drop those legs over towards that right side. So when we start to stretch through that left side. And again, we might bring those legs over and support them on a block or a cushion. We might support them with the hand. We might hug them a little bit more towards the floor. That feels better. We can play around with the position of the kind of left arm, the position of the head. So again, we just find that spot where we get that real openness through the front of the left shoulder, left chest, pectoral area. Maybe even a little bit down those side muscles. And then again, we can slowly bring those legs back to center. We can do a slightly different variation here. So again, keeping those legs wrapped, but this time bring your thighs up towards your belly, and then lift those arms right, not arms, legs right off and onto the floor on your right side. So again, your belly and your thighs are a little bit closer, so it's slightly changed the position of the pelvis. So again, whenever you change the position of the pelvis in poses, it changes the stretch a little bit. And again, the same thing here. You can hug the legs, you can support the legs, you can play around a little bit with the position of the left arm, however feels good for you. And again, we just relax here into this twist for a couple of breaths. And then again, we can slowly bring those legs back to center. We can unwrap those legs. We can just take that moment between the sides. And then again, we can go on to that opposite side. So again, we can take left leg over. We can again wrap the left foot against around the back of the right. Sorry, we can take right leg over. We can wrap the right foot around the back of the left leg. Or again, we can leave the right foot rest against the left lower leg. We can again just have our right arm out shoulder level. We can drop the legs over towards our left side here. Again, we play around with the position of the right arm, the position of the head here. We support the legs, hug the legs in, prop the legs up. And then again, we can slowly bring those legs back to center. That final one, we just lift the thighs up towards the belly. We really step those legs off that mat over towards that left side. Then we hug the legs in, support the legs. Play around with the position of the right arm, the position of the head. And then again, we can slowly bring those legs back to center. We can unwrap the legs. We can rock out the lower back for a couple of moments. And then we're just going to get ready now to come into your little relaxations. Again, you can get any warmer clothes on. You can grab a blanket, grab a cushion, turn the lights off. So again, we can just find any comfortable position here on the floor. So again, we can have arms and legs stretched out. We can have bolster or something underneath the knees. We can have the legs propped up against the side of the sofa or the bed, which is always quite a nice one sometimes, called the lower legs. So again, we used to do this a lot with chairs in the kind of Tuesday and Thursday morning classes. So again, just take those few moments here, just getting comfortable, your back, make sure you're nice and warm and cozy. And again, we can just slowly start to shift our awareness to that breath. Just becoming aware of the inhalation, the exhalation. We can start to just bring the breath into the body. So again, we can just breathe from the top of the head right down into the fingers, the toes. Again, just focusing into any little areas of tension, tightness, discomfort in the body. And again, as we breathe out, just allowing the areas to relax. And the body just release, let go of any tension, discomfort anywhere. And again, just breathe from the top of the head right down into the fingers, the toes. And again, as we exhale, allowing the weight of the body to just sink down into the floor. And everything release, relax. And bring our breath and our awareness into the legs, again from the hips, into the thighs, knees, calves, shins, feet. So we breathe out, just allowing the legs to relax. And the weight of the legs sink down into the floor. Letting everything soften, release. You can bring the breath and the awareness into the arms, again from the shoulders into the upper arms, the elbows, forearms, wrists and hands, fingers, thumbs. And again, as we breathe out, just allowing the arms to relax, letting the weight of the arms just sink down into the floor, and just letting everything release. Bring our breath and our awareness now to the front of the body, so going from the pelvis up into the abdomen, belly, diaphragm, lungs, chest, ribs, collarbones. So we breathe out, we allow the weight at the front of the body sink into the back of the body, into the floor. Bring the breath and the awareness into the back, so again from those shoulder blades down to all those big back muscles. And again, as we breathe out, and go any tension, discomfort held in the back. Breathing into the neck, the front of the neck, the back of the neck. As we breathe out, relaxing the neck. And breathing up into the face, the chin, the mouth, the cheeks, the nose, the ears, the eyes, the forehead. And then just breathing into the top of the head, back of the head right touches the floor. And then we can just breathe now from the top of the head right down into the fingers, the toes. Focusing into any little areas of tension, tightness, discomfort. And again, as we breathe out, just allowing the body to relax down into the floor, just letting everything soften. Just letting go. So we can just bring our awareness back to the body, where that floor underneath us, the air on the skin. Start to breathe a little deeper. You can start to bring that little bit of gentle movement. Again, just starting to wiggle the fingers, the toes a little, taking the head from side to side. Again, when you're ready to bring a little bit more movement into the body, doing that gentle overarm stretch. And then again, we can just bring the hands together, gently rub the hands together. We can't do this anymore in classes in person, we can do it online. Bringing the hands up to the eyes, gently blinking into that warmth and darkness of the hands. Bringing the fingertips onto the eyelids, gently massaging the eyelids onto the temples, down the sides, the jaw, to the chin. And then just hugging the knees in, rocking out. And then slowly rolling up to any comfortable seated position to finish. So thank you very much, guys.